If you notice, I've entitled the message, Technology. Who are you? Where are you? Oh boy. You may know some of this I'm going to talk about today. Some of it you may not. It may just blow you away. But that's okay. That's what we're doing. In chapter 13, Revelation, this is coming down, and John the Revelator records, talking about the beast, and we're not going to get into all that. I just want to look at a couple of verses and kind of springboard off of that. Let's talk about the beast. Anyway. And he performed great and miraculous signs, even causing fire to come down from heaven to earth in full view of men. And because of the signs, he was given power to do on behalf of the first beast. He deceived the inhabitants of the earth. And he ordered them to set up an image in honor of the beast who was wounded by the sword and yet lived. Now, we're going to read on through 17. I started earlier. He was given power to give breath to the image of the first beast, that it could speak and cause all who refused to worship the image to be killed. He also forced everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to receive a mark on his right hand or on his forehead, so that no one could buy or sell unless he had the mark, which is the name of the beast or the number of his name. You know, we talking about those. That's I believe that's after the rapture. I don't believe we're going to be here at that time. Those are, the Bible talks about those that could be deceived, or even the elect if possible. And that's another teaching. We don't want to delve off into that. That's deep enough as it is. But what I want to do is, as I look about that, I want to look at, that's why I entitled Technology, who are you and where are you? I use this verse because I believe it's absolutely possible to see how all this could actually be. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, you take 10, 15, 20, plus years ago, and you read this verse, and for me, it was, well, how's that going to come into play? I just can't see that, how it's going to happen. And I believe that now to where we are today with technology, for me, I think we can absolutely see how it can happen. That's what I want to talk about today. Technology will enable this to be done, and is enabling us to be done on a worldwide basis. Technology is one of those things that can be used for the greatest good, yet like anything else, it can be used for the greatest evil. So I want to begin with the first term that we need to understand. That's digital identity, or sometimes referred to as digital ID. Your digital ID, I want you to think, okay, you got to think in computer terms, or digital. Your digital ID consists of various pieces of information about you. You say, well, how do they get that? I'm going to give you some ways on how they do that. Now, it's all in digital form, so that when they call up, a computer can call up specific points, and enough of the points, when they come together, it forms your digital ID, so they know who you are. Let's just say government, NSA, okay? And well, that was a big blow up several years, not too many years ago, right? Digital identities allow our access to computers. If you work on a computer, if smartphone or a screen or whatever, you got username and password. That's one form of a digital identity. Allow access to computers and the services they provide. Even make it possible for computers to mediate relationships. We refer to that as online dating. You cannot erase yourself from the digital universe. Courts and government agencies have been posting public records online since the mid-1990s. And I was wondering, as I thought about that, I thought, well, I can't recall specifically, but I would almost predict that back in the mid-90s, we probably thought that was a good thing. I remember, especially if someone broke the law, or or something like that. And even till now, I know they do it in the Stroud newspaper. I can't remember if they did it in the Bristol or not. I get the Bristol and I try to read it. But they will publish if someone broke the law, that past week or past 2, they put their names and what they did and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, public identity. The ID 2020 Alliance. The ID, and I've never heard of it. You may not have either. The ID 2020 Alliance, it's a non-governmental organization, and what it does, it advocates for digital ID for the billion undocumented people worldwide and underserved groups like refugees. Now, those are buzzwords. I want you to remember that undocumented is a buzzword. Underserved is a buzzword. Which begs the question, well, why does every person on the planet need to be documented? Now, I'll guarantee you'll get all kinds of answers for that, and it will all be emotional and humanitarian and all that type of stuff. Well, my goodness, how in the world does this world ever survive without all that kind of stuff, documentation in past history? There's an article dated September 19th, 2019, give you a little idea of this influence of this ID 2020 group. Quote, the government of Bangladesh recognizes that the design of digital identity systems carries far-reaching implications for individuals' access to services and livelihoods, and we are eager to pioneer this approach, end quote. You see how it's being sold? Because through my digital identity, I have all this access to all these services. And, if you've ever bought anything online, there's a service, And so now we convenience. I buy stuff online, And so remember, watch what's going on. So this program in Bangladesh, it harnesses existing birth registration, vaccination operations to provide newborns with a portable and persistent biometrically linked digital identity. So it's bio-linked by your DNA, your blood type, et cetera, and so forth. All the stuff that has biometrics in it. The program will also explore and assess several leading infant biometric technologies to offer persistent digital identity from birth, unlocking a potential global public good. Another buzzword. That's basically a buzzword for one government, one world government. This provides the opportunity for immunization, watch this, to serve as a platform for digital identity here in the U.S. I guess all we need now is a pandemic. So how is this digital ID used? Well, one way it's used is driver's license. You may have heard of the Real ID Act. The Real ID Act passed Congress in 2005. And what it did was it enacted and enabled, if you will, the 911 Commissioner's recommendation that the federal government, quote, set standards for the issuance of sources of information such as driver's licenses, end quote. So it was up to the 911 Commission, because 911, guess what birthed it? 911. So 4 years later, 2005, in order to, and it sounds good, in order to battle what happened at 911, then we need to come up with some standards for driver's licenses in hopes of stopping that. That's like saying, if I take away your guns, we won't have any more deaths. The Act established minimum security standards for license issuance and prohibits federal agencies from accepting for certain purposes driver's licenses and ID cards from states not meeting the Act's minimum standards. So what is the purpose of the Act? So I just went online. You can get all this online. So I went on, I said, well, I want to know what the purpose of the Act was. So here's what it says, their official statement. The official purpose. The term official purpose includes, but is not limited to, buzzwords, assessing federal facilities, boarding federally regulated commercial aircraft, flying, entering nuclear power plants. I tried to get in one of those last week. Couldn't do it. I was really curious about nuclear power plants. And here's what you got to watch. This is stated, and any other purposes that the Secretary shall determine. What's wrong with that statement, that last statement?
Whoever's in charge, it's their choice as to.
It's open-ended. It's just open-ended. Now watch. So we're going to start off with the driver's license. You can't get on an airplane if you don't have the real ID driver's license. You can't come into a federal facility like a federal, building, and you can't board an aircraft. Now you can use your passport, but if you don't have the real ID driver's license, you can't do it. And so it's all set up, to me, with the kicker statement and any other purposes that the Secretary shall determine. Just for your knowledge, the Department of Homeland Security has extended the federal real ID for Oklahoma deadline to October 1st, 2021. I don't know if you knew that Oklahoma's been bucking that for several years. They'll finally give in. It'll finally happen. But we got another extension because we keep trying to buck that and said, no, we don't want to do the federal ID. But look, be wise as the serpent. What will happen? No, we're not prophets. I don't think anyway. We're not prophets. We're sons of a prophet, daughters of a prophet. But if I start putting the pinch on you, okay, remember, any other purpose? If I had something else, put a little more pinch on you. Well, that didn't work. I'll add something else, put a little more pinch on you. You'll come around. I'll get you around where I need you to be. And that's what's going to happen. What it will be, I can't tell you that. But this is not rocket science. So the digital ID, driver's license. Here's another point of your digital ID. Internet, mobile phone, computer. When you use that, you get on the internet, the data created from your usage contains sensitive and revealing insights about your identity, your location, your behavior, your associations, and your activities. Have you ever, and of course it's all used, or say most of it, all used for marketing. Have you ever, for those of you that Google stuff or you want to research something, have you ever Googled a particular product? You just want to kind of see? And then just within a short period of time, it may be minutes, it may be just a few hours, all of a sudden you're getting emails about that particular product maybe from someone else. You ever seen that? Mm-hmm. How do you think they're doing that? NSA can track you down in just about a heartbeat. If you use a credit card, make a phone call on your cell phone, go through a toll booth, driving down the road, not using your cell phone, but just having your cell phone on or off. Pay a bill online, or just as I just said, if you just access the internet, boom, you're open to the world, for those that want to know anyway. I know years ago, I had a meeting with a congressman, and we met for breakfast, and when we first sat down, he took a cell phone out and put it under his leg. Now you know why. I knew why, but now you know why. NSA, Big Gov, what do you want to call them? They can find you whenever they want. And by the way, you may know this, but if you don't, you need to be aware on your computer, at home, if you have a screen of whatever sort, if it's got a webcam on it, you might want to cover up that camera. Because it's well known. They can hack that. Someone can be watching you behind your computer and you don't even know it. And also even listen through your microphone if yours has a microphone. So that's a built-in webcam. Or if you have a separate webcam that plugs in, just sits on it can be hacked. So let's look at some digital ID milestones as of September 2020. Number one, the UN and the World Bank have set a goal of providing everyone on the planet with a legal identity by 2030. That's their goal. What's the relationship with the UN in America? Always, you hear whatever president, doesn't matter, in years past, now, watch how they treat the UN. Number two, digital driver's licenses have gathered momentum in countries, including the U.S., U.K., Australia, and the Netherlands. Let's see now, if it's gathering momentum around the world, other nations, what's that headed to? Number three, now this was kind of interesting. This you talk about on the leading edge of technology. I haven't really heard of this to this degree. It's called the digital or the smart city. It's becoming the model that ensures consistency in all the links between urbanites, the broader communities, and public authorities. This model includes e-government, electronic, or m-government, mobile, within which digital identity is the key that unlocks the individual's access to a rich array of services and support. In other words, it's the smart city. Okay, you know that even your GPS is, if you have GPS in your car, that's all trackable, right? I mean, yeah. And so, in other words, everything, because of all the technology, all the vehicles, the phones, if you're walking down the street, if you're driving down the street, the technology and traffic lights, the technology, the cameras on the traffic lights, all this kind of stuff, it all works together. It can, only God knows how much it can tell you if you're looking for something, or turn right up here to go, you were looking for this earlier. I mean, it's a smart city. It's all connected. Everybody is connected. What was that I read? I want to say 4 billion. Now, the population, I know it's over 7 billion, probably 7.5, something like that. The world population. And I read an article that says 4 billion people have cell phones. 4 billion. You think that's a big business? I talk about this stuff, and I didn't even mention, I just mentioned here, but I haven't even talked about or gone to depth on the cameras, on all the traffic lights, the cameras around cities, cameras at toll booths, cameras wherever. I haven't even talked about that, that know your every move. Satellites that can pinpoint your location. Technology that records every purchase so that companies can market to you. I mentioned that just briefly to you. And and the big one that I was doing some reading on, and you've heard about it, and I've heard about it. Microchip implants. Remember hearing about that? Have you heard anything on that lately? I haven't. I guess there's stuff out there to read, but I haven't heard anything on it. That's well down the road. Well down the road. There are nations that are already using it and almost bragging on it. Put a little, in this one, they just put a little, it's about the size of a piece of rice. Put it right here. Remember, you can wave. And you see, how many, people using their cell phone to pay for stuff, remember you can go to, and you just hold it because you got that built-in wallet. I think Apple calls it wallet, some other stuff. I don't use that stuff, but you can just do that, fan it. Well, why do I need that anymore? You see, everything leads to a conclusion. Everything leads to a conclusion. And the day is coming that, like we read in Revelation, where if an individual doesn't comply, services will be denied. Technology will be how you buy just about anything in the midst of a one world government. And always remember that sheep are dumb animals. I'm sorry, but we are dumb. God calls us sheep for a reason. I don't care if you got MIT degree. That's not the dumbness that we're referring to, not the intellect. The sheep are dumb, easily led to slaughter. This leading has been going on for years, decades and decades, with all the conveniences we're happy to follow. You give me another convenience, sign me up, right? And that's kind of been the attitude of America for a long, long, long time. But if you go back and look at the history of nations, that's that cycle of nations. You know, prosperity is right there at the end. Conveniences and all those things. And it's just leading us to slaughter. Know that Satan has worked through despots and world systems since the fall. And he continues to do that today throughout the world through technology. All right, so let me close. Why do I tell you all this? Why is it important that Christians, we need to understand this and know what's going on? God's children, we should be the most informed group on this planet. Why? Because we should be studying God's Word and learning what it says, because it tells us. It tells us this stuff. The problem is you got so many Christians, you'd probably surprise us. I don't know the number. You can kind of tell sometimes. You just listen to people talk. It scares us probably for the number of Christians that are on board. And I'm not saying go defunk technology. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is you better be wise to it, because it is way down the road. Way down the road. You remember when that deal blew up here a few years back, about 6 years ago with the NSA, 8 years ago, 7 years, something like that? And all that deal, all the information they were getting, that thing blew up for a while, and rightfully so. You ain't heard anything else about it. They just continue on. And so we need to understand we should be the most informed. Why? Well, so that we should be able to connect the dots. You know, when this happens, the NSA, and see now, like I'm saying, that's why I read that passage. I can see now through technology how easily that can come together. Technology is going to lead us there, I do believe. And most will just walk sheep led to slaughter, because technology brings us convenience. Technology brings us ease. I'm not going to say God didn't give it to us. We get a lot of stuff from the Lord, but we also take all the good stuff, and there's always someone going to make bad out of it. That's just the way it is this side of heaven. So we should be able to connect the dots, what's going on around us, and by doing so, this should inspire us to be even more mindful of sharing the gospel. As we begin to get a bigger vision and a clearer picture of how the end can come and how fast it seems to be moving that direction. It's like we was talking this morning that, you know, Armageddon, what's Armageddon about? Attack of Israel, right? I mean, all the nations come against Israel, the Battle of Armageddon. Well, how many nations hate Israel right now? Bunches. Why does Armageddon not happen right now? Well, it's not God's time, and that's true. But there's another reason the nations aren't going to jump on Israel right now. America's still alive. America wouldn't allow that, and they know that. So, like every great nation, America's it's going to die one day. I say it will implode by its own immorality, just like most nations have. So don't be alarmed. Don't be wise, be smart. That's what I'm saying. Knowing this stuff, this is what the book tells us, that we should be inspired even more so to stand on truth, number one, and share that gospel to whoever will listen. If they're not going to listen, that's okay. Well, it's not okay for them, but there's nothing I can do about that. If we go with love and compassion and we're just trying to show the truth, you might as well buck up. That's why I told you, remember, several months ago, I said we're going to start preparing for battle. You probably didn't totally understand what that meant, but the battle is against the culture. The days of Christian persecution are coming. Oh, it's coming. Yeah, it is coming. There's already some of it going on, but it's going to get a whole lot worse. So listen, don't be fearful. Fear is not from God. What we're going to do is you better get boned up on the Word. You really need to buck up on this, because that is what will enable you to stand. You can't stand against something if you don't have the foundation to know why you're standing. Now, the Spirit empowers us to stand, but if I don't have the knowledge of what God is telling me, what are you going to stand on? Well, I'm going to stand on the Bible. Okay, that's a good start. How are you going to answer those that don't care what the Bible says? We should be inspired to share the gospel even more. And let me just end by this one statement. Even if anything I've said today, it doesn't make a lick of sense, I just want you to remember this, that Jesus is coming again. He's coming soon. Praise the Lord. Someone say, praise the Lord. I'll tell you what, you know what? And if you've entrusted your life to Him, I mean giving your life over, I'm not talking about lip service. A lot of lip service in America. A lot of lip service. We're not talking about lip service. We're talking about entrusting our life over, dying to self,